This is an audio short, part of a series of short stories from the Coin Up Animator. You can find audio shorts at www.coinupanimator.com. Audio shorts are free for members, so remember to sign up and become a member of the Coin Up Club. You are listening to Writer's Block, a short story about one man's struggle with the muse, written and read by Zig Bingham. Please note that whilst this story is suitable for all audiences, it does deal with suicide to a comedic effect, so if that's a trigger warning for you, I would advise against listening to the story now. Thank you. Hello there, old friend. It's been far too long. Out of the darkness came nothing. The void that lived within the numb had been silent for far too long. His fingers weren't used to moving around the keyboard. His thoughts buried deep, shrouded by the blanket that made him wish for the old pain. He had been withdrawn for too long. He had been circling the pit of creation, that deep well where enthusiasm drowned, long abandoned to the self-doubt and the silent criticism he felt from the corners of other people's eyes. And he knew that look. Years ago he had caught himself giving that look when presented in good faith with a friend's hard work. It was good. Just good. And now that memory's cold, dead hand reached out with whispers that if he hadn't made it by now, it was too late. You're too late. Now he was that man. Now he was that woman. Now it was his turn, and he felt the unspoken breaths. He heard the same words blowing gently into his ears by sirens of forgotten desires. Too little, too late. Good, but not good enough. But still he circled. Still he stalled. It had taken him an eternity to return to the page, to the laptop. The fire had long gone. Perhaps he would find it in the kitchen, but all he found was the last piece of cheese in the back of a cold, dirty fridge, shaven and bitten, now forgotten, just a stump of hardened dairy product, half wrapped in its old jacket, becoming one with the frost in the corner. He looked for inspiration on the internet and found nothing but porn and distraction and art supplies, foam core boards and multicoloured highlighters and post-it notes. Yes, he would do it properly this time. He would plot it all out, sketch out his ideas, and the stories would take shape. So he clicked and waited. 2 more days passed, and he pretended it wasn't procrastination. The A2 foam boards were divided on the wall into acts, all hanging in portrait. 4 boards, the middle 2 acting as the larger middle act. Effectively 2 acts in one. The first and last board, the first and last acts. He wasted hours lighting them, created a space where he imagined himself Sorkin-like, throwing post-it notes on the boards, creating the next script, the one that would land him the job. He imagined the conversation from journalists, and he would regale them with his technique, how he battled writer's block and won. Perhaps he would start a YouTube channel, tips and tricks for the aspiring writer. He built a shelf for all the pens and blue tack and pins and inspiration that would surely come. He stood back and admired his handiwork, ready to fire an arrow into the heart of the beast. And he waited. He was ready. She would come. The muse would come. He stared at the boards. So he decided to go for a walk. It rained. He came back drenched. The heavens had pissed on him. The thunder howled ridicule. The lightning struck a tree nearby, and he wished it had been him. The butchered tree wished it was him too. He watched dozens and dozens of films, research, he told himself, but all he saw were those more successful than him, and he railed at the fuckers who wrote that crap. He was better than that, and he knew it. He was, well, at least better than the shit ones, and he was definitely better than mediocre. Secretly, he knew he was brilliant. He tried running. That would do it. Clear his head, get some fresh air into his lungs, take his mind off the dozens of rejection emails he was getting every day, or would be if he sent them out. But it did nothing but make him more angry and more bitter and have more energy to feel so. But at least his anger was new, and he was determined to use that energy for good, so he held on to it all through the night and into the morning. After 3 days of insomnia, this somewhat dampened the fire. And 3 days after that, the pit was still there, as it was the week after. The treacle he walked through every day made him feel like he was enclosed in cling film. Everything he touched was one step removed from where it should be. He was miserable in a crowd and miserable alone. Only that wasn't it. He just felt numb. 3 weeks ago he felt anger. Now, at least the spark of anger would have been something. One night he even planned his own death. He thought about the twitchy man down the road that always crossed his path on the way home. This time he would definitely buy something. Maybe everything. Maybe definitely some opioids and a bag of weed. He imagined smoking the weed and shooting up the heroin and slipping into a deep, warm bath, submerging himself. He would hold his breath until he could breathe no more, or would plunge all the smack into his vein and let nature take its course. He would fall asleep and slip into the bath and drown and not even know it. He would die high. What a way to go. But he would also shit himself. And the picture of someone finding him in a pool of rotten flesh and shit and puffy eyes and, well, shriveled penis upset him. Especially the shriveled penis. He was a bit obsessed with his penis. Jumping off a bridge would be a good idea, except for the actual falling. What if he changed his mind on the way down, or worse still, changed his mind after miraculously surviving the fall? Just stuck in the silt bed below, stuck watching the tide coming, bringing in his now unwanted death. I mean, that could happen. He wouldn't be the first. It wouldn't even be an original death. Failed screenwriter's failed suicide attempt results in death. It was a catchy headline, though. No, suicide, no. And it was a bad time of year to kill yourself. Christmas was coming, and it would be a bit of a downer for his mother. His sister probably didn't mind. I mean, they didn't get along. She was Catholic, and that would create a lot of confusion within her. And a lot of confession. So, pluses and minuses. He too was Catholic, however, and knowing his luck, God was real and Catholic, and he would be sent straight to hell for committing suicide. So, suicide then was out of the question. What then? A real job, a 9 to 5? Weirdly enough, right now, the thought appealed to him. The idea of having weekends off and bank holidays and having a drink after work. Well, maybe he would meet a nice girl and settle down and make his mother happy. But then he remembered the actuality, remembered just how miserable he felt plodding along with the rest of the zombies and the brain-dead vampires. And there was also the little matter of the fact that he hated the public too much to become one of them. So, what else was there? The page. Just the page and the word. The word and the page. The laptop was still sitting there after all these weeks, barely touched apart from the porn. But it was open now, and there was a blank screen, a blinking cursor. Where had she gone? Would he have to beg? Would she even listen? He listened deep to the void and heard nothing. Always nothing. Not even a notion of nothing. Page was there calling, but he was a spent man. How then to begin? How to force himself to sit down at the keys and make himself write? How could he write when he had no ideas and no inspiration? Just then the kettle clicked, and he stared at the blank screen for the moment before going to the kitchen and pouring himself a cuppa. He returned and circled the laptop like an old dog sniffing around the arse of an indifferent cat. "Sit down," he said to himself. "Sit down," he said aloud. "Just sit the fuck down." He sat down, put the tea down, raised his hands, put his fingers on the keys, and started pushing buttons. Not really thinking about what he was doing, just pushing the buttons. At first it was just a garbled mess. And then, "Hello there, old friend," he wrote. "It's been far too long." The end. You have been listening to another audio short. This was Writer's Block, read and written by Zig Bingham. You can find more audio shorts at the CoinUp Animator website, which is coinupanimator.com. You can also find links to social media and more up there. All work in this recording, both the mechanical and the written, and the performance is the copyright holder, Zig Bingham.